Good morning. I'm Stephen Leake. I'm an elder and the Sunday school teacher of the Discipleship Sunday School class at First Presbyterian Church in Mesquite, Texas. Now it's very cold in Texas today, and the sunlight is beaming off of the snow and making it very light in here, and it's below freezing outside. And the heater is running full blast. So I'm going to be competing with the heater this morning, but we're glad to have heat and glad to have light. And I'm glad to be able to teach you the 19th lesson in the Gospel of John. Now recall, our text is from the Daily Bible Study Series by Professor William Barclay. And we're also using the New Revised Standard Version of the Bible, which is the Pew Bible that we have in our church. Now last week we started the story of the wedding feast at Canaan. And it's what John records as the seventh day in the first week of Jesus' ministry. Now our text today comes from John chapter 2, verses 1 through 11. Now last week we began this lesson by talking about what happened in those verses, and today we're going to delve a little bit deeper into that and talk about what it means and also what it means for us. So I'm going to reread the text of last week's lesson to get us introduced to this week's lesson. On the third day, there was a wedding in Cana of Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. Jesus and his disciples had also been invited to the wedding. When the wine gave out, the mother of Jesus said to him, "They have no wine." And Jesus said to her, "Woman, what concern is that to you and me? My hour has not yet come." His mother said to the servants, "Do whatever he tells you." Now standing there were 6 stone jars for the Jewish rites of purification, each holding 20 or 30 gallons. Jesus said to them, "Fill the jars with water." And they filled them to the brim. He said to them, "Now draw some out and take it to the chief steward." So they took it. When the chief steward tasted the water that had become wine and did not know where it came from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew, the steward called the bridegroom and said to him, "Everyone serves the good wine first, and then the inferior wine after the guests have become drunk. But you have kept the good wine until now." Jesus did this, the first of his signs, in Cana of Galilee, and revealed his glory, and his disciples believed in him. As I said earlier, last week we looked at the basic facts of the story and set it within its background, and we saw it come alive. Today we're going to look at certain things it tells us about Jesus and his work, and the permanent truth which John is seeking to tell us in it. We note 3 things about this wonderful deed which Jesus did. First, we note when it happened. It happened at a wedding feast. Jesus was perfectly at home at such an occasion. He was not a severe, austere killjoy. He loved to share in the happy rejoicing of a wedding feast. Now there are certain religious people who shed gloom wherever they go. They're suspicious of joy and happiness. And we really don't like to be around people like that, do we? But Jesus taught us to be happy, and we should spread his joy wherever we go. Second, we note where it happened. It happened in a humble home in a village in Galilee. This miracle was not performed against the background of some great occasion and in the presence of vast crowds. It was performed in a home. Jesus' action at Cana of Galilee shows what he thought of home. As the New Revised Standard Version has it, he revealed his glory, and that revelation took place within that humble home. There's a strange paradox in the attitude of many people to the place they call home. They would admit that there's no more precious place in all the world. And yet, at the same time, they also admit to being more selfish and impolite there than they would be in the company of strangers. So often it's strangers who see us at our best, and those who love us and live with us who see us at our worst. Third, we note why it happened. We've already seen that hospitality was a sacred duty in the Middle East. Running out of wine at a wedding would have brought shame upon a home. Jesus revealed his power to save a humble Galilean family from disgrace. Jesus acted in sympathy, kindness, and understanding for ordinary people. There's a kind of human maliciousness which enjoys the misfortunes of others and delights to make a good story of them in idle gossip. When we use deeds of kindness and understanding, we reject that and we show that we are followers of Jesus. This story shows us two things about Mary's faith in Jesus. First, instinctively, Mary turned to Jesus whenever something went wrong because she knew her son. It was not until he was 30 years old that Jesus left home. All those years, Mary had lived with him and depended upon him. Like Mary, those who know Jesus intimately turn to him instinctively when things go wrong. Second, even when Mary did not understand what Jesus was going to do, even when it seemed that he had refused her request, Mary still believed in him so much that she turned to the wedding servers and told them to do whatever Jesus told them to do. Mary had the faith which could trust even when it did not understand. She did not know what Jesus was going to do, but she was certain that he would do the right thing. In life, things happen, and we do not see any meaning in them. This story teaches us to trust, even when we cannot understand. Still further, this story tells us something about Jesus. In answer to Mary, he says this, "My hour has not yet come." All through the gospel story, Jesus talks about his hour. In John 7:6 and in John 7:8, he speaks of the hour of his emergence as the Messiah. In John 12:23 and 17:1, and in Matthew 26:18 and Matthew 26:45, and in Mark 14:41, it is the hour of his crucifixion and death. All through his life, Jesus knew that he had come into this world for a definite purpose and a definite task. He saw his life not in terms of his wishes, but in terms of God's purpose for him. All through his life, he went steadily towards that hour for which he knew that he had come into the world. Now we will consider the deep and permanent truth which John is seeking to teach when he tells this story. Now, John was a Jew, and he wrote for the Jews, but his great objective was to write the story of Jesus in such a way that it could be understood and appreciated by Greeks. First, we look at the story from the Jewish point of view. Beneath John's simple stories, there's a deeper meaning. John never wrote an insignificant detail. There were 6 stone water pots, and at the command of Jesus, the water in them turned to wine. According to the Jews, 7 is a perfect number and 6 is an imperfect number. The 6 stone water pots stands for the imperfections of the Jewish law. Jesus came to do away with the imperfections of the law and replace it with the new gospel of grace. And there's another thing to note. Each pot held between 20 and 30 gallons of water, which Jesus turned into wine. And you know, no wedding party could drink that much wine. That's 180 gallons of wine. What John's telling us here is that when the grace of Jesus comes to us, there's more than enough. In fact, the word that Professor Barclay used is there's a superabundance of grace. Now we'll look at it from the Greek point of view. The Greeks had a story similar to this, based on the Greek god of wine, Dionysus. 3 empty kettles were put into his temple by a priest, and the doors were sealed. The next day, the sealed temple was entered, and the kettles were full of wine. So John is saying to the Greeks, you have your stories and your legends about your gods, but they are only stories and not really true. But Jesus came and he did what you only dreamed your gods could do. And what is John trying to teach us with this story? What he wants us to see here is not that Jesus once, on a single day in Palestine, turned pots of water into wine. He wants us to see that when Jesus comes into our life, there comes a new quality of life. Without Jesus, life is dull and flat. When Jesus comes into it, life becomes vivid and exciting. Remember that John was writing 70 years after Jesus had been crucified. When John told this story, he was remembering what life with Jesus was like. In this story, John is saying to us, if you want a new exhilaration, become a follower of Jesus Christ, and there will come a change in your life which will be like changing water into wine. That's all for today. Thank you, and next week we'll continue with the early days of the ministry of Jesus, recorded in the book of John. God bless.